Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Everything Theater podcast, the podcast where we talk about.
Everything Theater. Hi, I'm Vanita Zahn.
I'm Ellen Cribbs.
Yeah, we're delighted to be with you again tonight. We've got a great guest for you. And, I think the local scene, theater scene, even though the world has not opened up yet, is starting to pick up some steam, Ellen. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting to see what people are looking at for 2021, if anything, but some people are hoping to have those doors open.
I feel it's almost like getting a seed catalog. It's not time to plant, but man, you go looking through the book to say, oh, oh, yeah, oh, if that, right? You want to
Absolutely.
order a little bit of everything. And in fact, let's just jump right in with our guest because he's agreeing with us. It's John Saunders, and he's the producing artistic director for the MacHaydn Theatre in Columbia County. For those of you who perhaps don't live in the 518, it's a sweet spot that's been around forever and then some. Hi, John.
Hi, how you guys doing tonight?
You're doing well.
Good.
We got you. So,
No, thanks for having me on.
what could be bad? And in fact, part of how you're keeping the story of MacHaydn Theatre, which got a 50-year history, alive through this is you're doing something similar to what we're doing.
Yeah.
You've been having conversations with people who have trod your boards.
Yeah, we did. We did over the summer, especially. What we tried to do was from the time of opening to when we would technically close, which is Labor Day, we started the show called In the Meantime. And that was me catching up with all different kinds. I mean, we had actors, music directors, we had a little bit of everything. And it was just a chance to kind of keep our audience engaged and to check in and see how people were surviving and thriving, and some of the funny pivots people were making, and digging into like what creatively they were doing. It was really fun.
That's what we've been doing in many ways. So, what are you finding? What have your performers been telling you?
Oh wow! I mean, we've had a lot of really interesting stuff. Things that like I had no idea that people even had certain interests. There were people who were pivoting to online teaching, of course. There were people who were suddenly switching and getting more into classes, going back to class, because as actors, especially, it's sort of a good time to go back to school. And then there were people who completely pivoted and were going back and getting BFAs and taking kind of taking advantage of the time to throw themselves into a full-time school program. So yeah, it was really interesting. A lot of online teaching, and a lot of just a lot of reflection, I think, for a lot of people.
How about for you?
Well, for me, it was funny. Like the summer, I stayed really busy within the meantime. And James Rogers, our managing director, and Amanda Calvin, who's our a big administrative assistant, they kept a Monday series going on Instagram where they were doing live interviews on Mondays. And those were a little different than what we were doing. And then I was kind of stayed busy doing the In the Meantime show. But, oddly enough, the summer off provided us, we have long-term plans for so much stuff, and it sort of allowed us to like really focus in on a lot of things financially, and let us really take some time and really do a deep dive and examine like how we were doing things, how things are operating, things that like we think about and we want to fix, but next thing you know, it's February, March, and we're auditioning again, and oh my God, it's Memorial Day weekend, and oh my God, here they come again, and then it's Labor Day, so it was really, we think we had, in the course of like 4 or 5 months, we think we accomplished about 3 years worth of goals, just because we had the time, because once we open our doors, and that's to the actors and in general, we're slammed all summer. We are so busy from the moment we start, literally from the moment we open the door and start to clean the theater every year. It's like a runaway train every summer, because there's so many people coming through our doors now, which is just such a great
So,
thing.
John, you didn't have that last year.
We did not. We
So,
did
what
not.
does that do to the books?
So for us, obviously, it's a huge, I mean, it was a big, big, kind of a crushing blow for us. I will say first and foremost, we have an amazing subscriber base, and so many people donated their tickets and did not ask for refunds, or they transferred them to this season. We were really, really lucky, and I mean lucky, that we hadn't opened the box office for general sales yet.
Mm.
So I say lucky because we weren't on the hook for to give major refunds. So it was like, I mean, as horrible as this sounds, the timing couldn't have been better for us to say we're not going to do it. We're not going to open. So we sort of dodged a bullet there. And then we started the Bright Future Fund, and that was when we started this campaign on Facebook, and we started, asking for donations, and people were watching the shows and contributing. People were watching the Instagrams. We've done a lot of online content. We have a Mac-Haydn workshop series. We just had a wellness, a self-care seminar just this past Sunday. We've got a big dance class coming up that's going to run for 6 weeks. That's really exciting. It's called BK from the UK. Brian Knowlton, who's been a choreographer with us for 10 years, he's worked here a long time, but he's live streaming a class from London, and
Wow.
doing a deep dive on 6 Broadway choreographers. And it's an hour and a half long class. You can do it live or you can stream it, however you decide to do it. But it's a deep dive into the choreographers who have like made these giant contributions to Broadway. He's going to talk about the choreographer, about the influence, and then there's going to be a combination, and it's open to all levels. So that's like our next kind of big push that we're doing. But we've
Jolly good, Ellen. We've got something to do.
yes, AK from the UK. It actually starts March 8th. So, and you can do a drop-in class. Like if you just want to go to the Bob Fosse class, you can go to the Bob Fosse class, and you can do it at home. So it's not like you're, if you want to dance, if you don't want to dance in front of anybody, you don't have to.
That's the best kind of dance class.
I know, right? So we have just tried really hard to keep up the engagement, because I think the big thing for us at the Mac-Haydn is, it's such a big community in the summer. So we just were so devastated to not see everyone. So we felt like we had to use social media to kind of keep everyone together and give everybody as best we could a place to meet. And
So,
No.
John, you've been doing all of this. And well, I know we want to talk a little bit about what you think this summer is going to look like for you, but even when the world returns to what we call normal,
yeah.
do you anticipate the embracing of social media to, if not the extent you're using it now, to some extent going forward?
Well, it's funny. I have to tell you, Benita, like, when I took over as the artistic director, we weren't really utilizing social media as much as we should have. So as a promotional tool and as a way to get the information out there and a way to market and bring people in and to put up teaser videos and keep the people engaged, it's been amazing. Social media is incredible for that. Do I think we'll pivot to like streaming shows and things like that? No, I don't. I really, I think that, the immediacy and the shared experience of being in the room with everybody there's so little of that left, I think, in the world, that I just don't want to start saying, you know what, we'll just do it online. Not that that's a bad thing. And I admire the companies that are doing it, but our particular model, we're a summer theater. We are, we're 8 shows a week. We do 7 shows a summer. It's the same people they have, every night, every second Wednesday, it's the same people that come, and there's little social circles that happen, so it's so much a community of live in-person stuff so I think social media has a lot of value, but I think hopefully we can get back to using social media to do what it really should do, which is engage people and inspire people to come out and come to the shows.
So as you're looking down the road, and it's really around the corner to this summer, are you looking at parallel paths, one being virtual and one being live?
We are not really looking. I mean, if we are unable to open our doors, we of course will figure out something to keep engagement going virtual. But as far as like streaming a show, there's no major plan for that. I am fingers crossed that we're going to get ourselves open this summer. It won't be our usual time, obviously. I think that's pretty evident, but we're holding out hope. We think that, I think the biggest problem right now is like, and it's taught me a lot this year, is like the patience factor, like someone just texted me today, are you opening? Are you opening? I'm like, I don't know. But I think every month it seems to get a little better, and watching the cases decline right now makes me feel great. And knowing that people are getting vaccinated makes me feel even better. And knowing that, there's some legislation coming that's going to help us to get open. So I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty optimistic. Now, some days I'm like, we're never going to open, see you in 2025. But for 99% of the time, I'm pretty positive we're going to get something on the
So
board.
what's on your agenda? What are we going to see if we get to come see it?
Well, here's the thing. I think if we, if all goes well, I think it'll be a very different season for us, because, we have, especially the last, several seasons, we've put a lot of people on stage. We had Ragtime last year, had over 30 people in it. So I think for this summer, we're not going to be able to do that. We're going to have to just kind of condense things, and we're going to have to really, and in a very cool way, it's forcing us to kind of re-examine some properties and look at shows and see, hey, can we do this with 12 to 15 people? How do we do a monster musical, but tell the story with less people? Unfortunately, there's not room to really eliminate crew and, in my opinion, musicians. So where we're going to do that probably will be in the acting company. But I think that would be like the big thing. The one big thing I am really, really hoping to do though this year, and last summer, usually in September, Labor Day hits, and I'll be honest, I usually run from Chatham, with my hair on fire, and I'm like, I'm going away. I go see family. I go to Florida. I go to Jersey. I kind of disappear. Well, this year I stayed, and I was so shocked by how many people were in the region in September, and it was warm and it was beautiful, and the weekends were so nice. So my goal is to keep us open through September this year. So my goal is to offer some new fall programming, and really connect it to the summer. So if we get the late start, my hope and goal is to really continue and keep the mood going through September. We might not do 8 shows a week in September, but there'll be a good offering of stuff to come see in the fall. Because it really is, September is beautiful, and there's a different crowd that comes up, that comes up for the fall weekend. So my hope is to maybe expand programming a little bit and maybe offer some shows that we might normally not offer in the regular summer season, and see if we can, tap into the fall, the leaf peepers.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And would these shows be different from the ones in 2020 that didn't go forward? Or are you hoping to pull from those shows that never happened?
I am hoping to pull from the shows that never happened. Obviously, I would probably imagine we're not going to be able to get 7 of them in. But some of them, like, we have to really rethink. It's going to be almost impossible to do a show. And sorry if this is a spoiler, but it's kind of hard to do 42nd Street with 12 to 15 people, So some shows will be trickier than others, but a show like Man of La Mancha, it's perfect, and then also, like, bringing in some local talent as well, I think will be really good. So it'll be a surprise. I'm looking at all sorts of titles now. But what's interesting is the royalty houses, I have to tell you, they've all been so fantastic. They've been so generous, and they're just kind of like, whatever you need, we're here. You can put this contract off till 2022 if you want. They've all been very, very cool about kind of understanding each theater's individual model and how we work.
What about, you have a troupe that comes in?
We usually do. Yeah. Every summer we have the resident acting company.
And I'm just going to give an aside. I shared with you, John, before we got started. There was a local performer in the capital region, and she was well known for a very long time, probably still is in New York City, a cabaret performer, Nancy Timpanero Hogan, who recently posted on Facebook. She'd come across some old pictures with her and Joe Nathan Lane. And now, of course, goes by Nathan Lane only. And they were part of the troupe so many years ago. And I'm waiting for a message back from Nancy. We'll get to see that picture here. So the people who have graced your stage is a who's who. And they come and they spend time. So what are you doing about that? Are you able to start saying, hey, we're going to start auditioning. How are we going to do this? Help us understand.
So, when the shutdown happened, we literally had just come back from New York City for our open auditions. So I've got a box of files like this long from the people that we saw last year. So my hope would be to like go back into those files, because I don't not knowing what the audition scene will look like in New York, if it's all going to be virtual or how that will work. So yeah, it really just depends on what they tell us we can and can't do. If I can bring in, I have to think about so many things. Like I have to think about housing. I have to think about social distancing. Is there space to put the regular big company of actors in the back? So there's just so many variables that it's just hard to kind of say whether I'll have the normal resident company. I think 2022 we're back on on track. So in a way it's exciting because this season, we if the theater gods are on our side, we'll get up and we'll get going, but it will look different. It will look different. But my goal really is to return to the real structure of what we've done for 52 years. It's such an important step in a young actor's life to be part of the resident company and work with the experienced, the more experienced actors who we job in, and then the equity guest artists that we bring in. So I think it's really important work, I think, that we're doing for people in the industry,
Yeah.
and then obviously the community too.
Now, speaking of the fact that you guys have been around for 52 years and you have normally 7 shows a summer, that must be a well-oiled machine. Can you kind of talk to us about how that even looks in the summer?
It is wild. I'll tell you what. People are always like, "How do you do this?" It's one. I'm surrounded by an amazing team of people who many of us have been doing it for a long time. I've been with the theater now. This will be 22 years. I started as an actor and then a director, and here I am now. But so it starts. We start. The crew comes in and the actors come in, and literally we have a meet and greet, and we start and we open a show like 10 days later, and one opens, and the next morning we're at music rehearsal for the next show. So one is rehearsing, one is performing, and we do that. 7 times. There's usually one show that runs for 3 weeks, which gets us an extra day off and gives us 3 weeks to work on one show, which feels like a year compared to the 2 weeks. And then, we have a children's theater program. So then we add in a couple of children's shows on top of that. So yeah, it really does run like a machine. Everybody, by about midway through the summer, you're so conditioned to doing it. Like, I can't believe I can still survive doing it. Because sometimes I get to September and I'm like, wow, I don't remember any of August. But I think it was pretty good.
You know what's the line from T.S. Eliot? I measure my life in coffee spoons. You probably would be fun to just measure your summer in coffee cups.
I mean, I think I should own stock in Dunkin' Donuts. I think there's a lot of iced coffee going into the engine.
And John, the theater's not around the corner for anyone.
No.
And yet you still get folks out there.
Yeah.
Why? What do you think is the ongoing allure?
Well, I think Chatham is, just as a village, I think it's such a fun spot. There's so much to do. There's great restaurants, and it's just a really beautiful setting to go. Because most of our audience, I didn't realize this until I really got more involved, but so much of our audience comes from the capital region, Schenectady, Albany. So many people drive a really long way. Um, I would say that I think it's the intimacy of the theater. I think it's the uniqueness of the space. And I always say that the Mac-Haydn is like an extreme close-up of a musical. When we're looking at something on proscenium, we're looking at that picture frame, and we feel sort of removed from it. At the Mac-Haydn, you could literally be standing next to Dolly Levi, and she's standing in the aisle next to you, and you're like, "Hello, Dolly," literally. So it really, to me, I think that's the magic of it, and I think the people that know that we're turning the show over every 2 weeks, and believe it or not, I think the resident company is what keeps people so intrigued, because they're watching these young actors who one week are doing, are dancing in cabaret, and then the next week they're dancing in Mamma Mia. And so people kind of develop favorites, and they're following them, and they're, so it's a real, and again, the Mac-Haydn to me has always been and will always be a very friendly place. And I think there's, like I said, the subscribers earlier, but there's a real kind of like celebratory ritual to it. Every show, the same people come to the same shows, and people tailgate, and it's just a great way to spend a few hours.
Part of the challenge for theaters, as you well know, is building a young audience.
Mhm.
And are you managing to do that?
Yes, I really do think we are, and I think that was one of the things Lynn Hayden. I think that was where I think I came into real play, was kind of getting Lynn to do some of the newer titles, and to do things that were a little, in Lynn's terms, risque, because I did want to bring in new audience, and Lynn was cool. Lynn was a real producer. Like, she loved to risk, she loved to go for it. And I think, as I sort of gave her, I guess I just helped her be real confident to try the newer titles. I remember the day she said to me, "Why don't we do that show about the kids who can't pay their rent?" And I was like, "You mean Rent?" She's like, "Yeah, that one." And I slowly backed out of the room, like, "Yeah, let me go see if I can get the rights." So we did Rent, and
we should point out Lynn and Linda.
Yes.
They were the founders of the theater back in 1969. For those who didn't know, haven't had an opportunity, and now I really hope that you delve into and learn more about Mac-Haydn.
Yeah, they were pioneers. I mean, they were truly, truly amazing. And we lost Linda in 2003, and then we just lost Lynn a few years ago. So yeah, so it was a big loss. But I think, she loved seeing those new titles go in, and she loved, because she wasn't able to really get down to New York to see stuff anymore. So she was sort of relying on me and a lot of us to, what's new, what is this, what is that, so yeah, it was very important to me to kind of expand the programming a little bit. And I feel like we've done that. I think we're offering like a much broader array of titles, and I'll always know that the theater is rooted in the classics, because we are a classic musical theater house, but our job is also to present the new stuff, and to bring new titles to people that don't get down to New York.
Listen, Ellen and I want to let you know, when you decide to do Come From Away, we're in. Okay, we're going to be your the pros who come in. Just saying.
Okay.
Just saying.
Noted.
All right. I mean, I don't normally, but we're saying.
Eventually, they're going to release that, but I think it'll be one of the ones that returns to the stage in the city. I think Come From Away is still going strong.
Yeah, and they're making the movie. They recorded in the city. There aren't a lot of resident companies in the summer, true summer stock, like what you're doing.
Very few.
It's a bit of an anachronism.
Yeah. Which is why I kind of want to hang on to it. You know, I feel like there aren't many of us left, you know, and I think it's a really, you know, it is, we are an old school model, but we're modernizing, you know, we're making it, we're trying to make it a little easier, make it not as tough. I mean, when I was an actor there, I mean, it was hard, really hard. So now that I'm kind of in charge, I've always been like, no, we can't make them do that. And no, we don't want to make them do that. No, they can't do that. We have to find someone else to do that. So I've tried to really make it a lot more civilized. But I remember one morning on my way to a children's show, and me and my friend Brandon, we were driving to the theater, and I was like, pull over. And he did, and we both were like crying. And he's like, what's the matter? I said, I don't know. I said, I think they're trying to kill us. And he saw me crying, so he started crying. And then, of course, it turned into laughter. And I think we called Barbara Peduzzi, and we were like, we're going to be late. And she was like, just get here. We were basket cases, you know, but so much fun, you know. And that's the other thing, too, is part of being in the resident company. I made some of the best friends of my life at the theater, and I'm still making best friends there, you know. So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, you do. You have to change. I'm sitting here sipping water. You know, it's been a long day. I spend the day talking, then come back. So
Yeah.
lest anybody think it's just H2O. But there's a fella that I sing with, a wonderfully talented person. He's our arranger. I sing with someone else.
Mhm.
He doesn't like you to take water on stage. And it's an old school thing. It's like your old school summer. You had to change. You
Yeah.
know, I said to my husband, who's an old coach, I go, that's like saying football can't drink water. You know, the kids, when
Yeah.
they're practicing, you learn. You know, the world changes and you have to adapt with it. And clearly, John, that's what you folks at MacHaydn have done in
Yeah.
order to continue to get not only the audiences, which is half of it, but as you pointed out, the great interest in young performers wanting to come
Yeah.
and hone their craft.
Exactly. And creating a safe space for them to come and do that, you know,
Yeah.
and to come and you know, I've had kids that have shown up and said that they learned more in the 4 months with us than they did in 4 years of school. Because, you know, you're in class a lot, you know, and then suddenly we toss them into like major production. They do 7 texts, you know, inside of 4 months. They're rehearsing huge shows. They're learning entire shows in 8 days, 9 days, you know.
It's
So
like
it's a
boot camp.
real, it
almost.
is Broadway boot camp. That's exactly, people call it that all the time, that it's like a Broadway boot camp, but it really doesn't. I always tell them too, like on the first day I said, every job after this is going to be easier. So you have that to look forward to.
If you can survive this,
Yeah,
right?
I know. I mean, I've had rehearsal processes where I'm like, we're still working on this. We should be open and closed by now, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really cool. It's a really just.
That's a t-shirt we need to make. Ellen, the floor is yours.
All right, so we've reached the end of the episode, which we call the close-up, and there's just some quick questions, just all about you, John, because we've heard a lot about
I
MacHaydn.
feel
So
like I
now
haven't
it's
stood up. Okay,
your spotlight. So are you ready for your close-up?
I think so.
Right. So what was the moment for you, John, in your life when you just knew you had to do theater?
Uh, there were 2 of them, but there was one. I played the gingerbread man in kindergarten, and I was just obsessed with the brown corduroys and the whole look. But for me, it was Annie on Broadway. I'm the 7th of 8 kids. I have 6 sisters, and I remember seeing Annie on Broadway and saying, I need to do this. And I was watching Miss Hannigan at the time. Full disclosure.
And what did your parents say when you said, "Yeah, I want to go be an actor"?
You know, my parents were so into it. My dad and mom were so supportive of what I wanted to do. They really were. They loved it. They loved it. They were very, very supportive of everything. We're all so different. All the kids, we've all kind of gone down very different paths, but yeah, they were into it. I mean, I was on tour in 2001, and I showed up in Lubbock, Texas, and I walked into the lobby of the hotel, and there are my parents.
Oh,
I'm like, what are you guys doing here? My dad's like, oh, I had a business trip. So here we are. And I was like, in Texas? Like it was, you know, they loved it. They loved it. And they came to the Mac-Haydn a lot. Yeah.
Is there a production that either you've been in or that you saw that just had a really big impact on your life?
Just in the world?
Yeah.
There's been so many. I mean, Ragtime changed my life when I saw it on Broadway in New York. Another show that really rocked my world was Parade at the Lincoln Center when it was running, like just like literally blew my mind. And then I was able to see a production of The Iceman Cometh on Broadway. And that to me was like the sheer, the marathon, the length of that show, and just the you know, it was unbelievable.
Did you see the revival, the one they did 2 years or so ago?
This was the one that, if you remember, Kevin Spacey played the Iceman, and it was Tony Danza was in it. It was just incredible. And recently, I have to say that one of the most incredible things I saw, especially as an audience member, was Dear Evan Hansen. I was just blown away by Dear Evan Hansen. Yeah, it was just as an audience member. I was just talking about it today in school. I'm teaching again, which is that's a whole other story. But I was talking about how Dear Evan Hansen, it felt like we were all breathing together. And I remember looking around the theater and being like, are we all like on the same heartbeat? Like, what's going on? And I love when that happens. I love that.
I remember seeing it in intermission. My mom and I turned to each other and just said, "Can it just stop here?" Because like it was such a beautiful place at intermission. You know, it's going to go downhill. But yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we just always like to ask people this for fun. What's the biggest whoops that you've experienced yourself or seen on a stage? Just something went really wrong.
Oh man, so many. Some I can't even talk about. Well, I'll tell this story because it's a Mac-Haydn story. We were doing Grease, my very first summer, and you know the scene where Sonny comes in with the zip gun, and they're about to pants Roger, you know, about to pull his pants down. I was playing Roger, and Jamie Grayson, who will kill me for this, he was playing Sonny, and he just overshot the gun, and he literally broke my nose on stage, and I was like, God, I heard it crunch, and then it was right before they had to pants me, and I laid down on the ground, and I was like, you know, Tweety Birds going, and they were all leaning over me. They're like, what do we do? I said, just pull my pants off. Pull my pants off and get me off stage. So they pantsed me. I ran off stage bleeding, and I ran right to the office. And Linda McNish, she looked at it, and she was like, come here. And she grabbed some Vaseline, and she went like this, and she rubbed it on my nose, and she's like, get out there. She's like, that's what they do for the boxers. I went right back out. And by the end of the show, I couldn't even put my glasses on because they wouldn't reach behind my ears, but I had this big swollen face, but I did it. And that was a pretty good mishap. You know?
Wow. Talk about persevering.
Yeah. But I've had a lot, you know, what can go wrong will go wrong. Okay, you know.
I never ask you if it can rain any harder.
Exactly.
What are you teaching?
I was very lucky. In September, I joined the faculty of the American Musical and Dramatic Academy here in the city, AMDA. So I've been back teaching musical theater performance, which has been such a blessing and has really just like saved my creative brain. So yeah, I'm just finishing up my first semester teaching there. So I have been thank you. I've been very lucky, and it feels great to kind of be giving it back, and it's keeping me really, really buoyant, which is great. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, it has been an absolute joy talking to you, John. And I personally have not made it down to MacHaydn. I've only moved here recently, but I looked it up today. I was like, you guys are only like 35 minutes from me. That is not far. So I really hope that this summer I can make it down because you guys will be doing something. I know. I'm feeling positive.
I hope so, and I'll hold you to that. You better come visit us.
Absolutely.
We'll make a little. I'm sorry.
You've performed at the Mac, Benita.
Yeah,
right?
I have. Yeah, it's a lovely place. In fact, I was there with that pianist,
Okay.
composer, and Jerry Gretzinger. Um, we did a fundraiser, I guess, for you guys. I
Yeah.
think is really what it was. We got paid, but I think
Right.
we split the house. And Jessica Layton, who had been one of the singing anchors, showed up to do a little singing with us. She had just had a baby.
Okay.
But that was my only opportunity. I've been to the theater to see shows, but to stand on the stage there, and it's all around. You really got to be body aware,
You do. You do.
as
And
you point out.
there's no hiding in there. I always tell actors that there's no hiding. Anywhere you look, someone's going to see you from some angle or
You can't scratch.
no, and it keeps you very honest. There's no turning up stage for a giggle. Let's put it that way.
That's true, but it's really delightful. And stopping in town, Ellen, there's what is it, Homefront, Victory? What is it? There's a cute little place in it's got to be Valatia. I think when you first get off, make the left in the town. It's not
In
a couple
Valatia.
of restaurants. I think it's in Valatia.
There's a few spots in Malaysia. There's so many great spots in Chatham now. Chatham
Yeah.
Burger, Yanni's, Chatham Grill,
Right.
Ligonia's Bistro is now on Main Street. Piconic, Our Daily Bread, who is like basically Our Daily Bread is kind of like our sister restaurant. They feed us every Saturday.
It sounds like we need a lot of trips, Ellen, to do all
Yeah.
this eating.
Oh,
You
yeah.
do. You do.
Well, there's 7 shows, Clementina. We can go
And
down 7
and
times a
the
year.
food game in Chatham is really strong, and it's a really just an awesome place to spend an
But
afternoon.
before we let you go, John, you've just got to share with us if you get one show up this year,
If we get one show up this year,
what's it going to
oof,
be?
oh my gosh, that's a really, Benita, my audience is going to hold me to this. It's going to be Man of La Mancha.
Love it.
Yeah, it was
You have to dream.
You do, and it was Linda McNish's favorite, like almost, I think it was her favorite musical, and the theater was built on the idea of the impossible dream. So I would say that, yeah, that would be the one.
Well, on that, we're about to lose you on our time on Zoom, but that's beautiful. We'll be there for Man of La Mancha. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And I'm Benita Zahn. John, thanks so very much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.